Welcome to the ODDSBREAKER'S #1 place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 32 of 2021. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at the ODDSBREAKERS and follow us on social media / the ODDSBREAKERS. This episode is being brought to you by MyBookie.ag. For a 50% sign-up bonus, please visit MyBookie and use the promo code TheOddsBreakers. Terms, conditions, and location apply. If you'd like to help us out with our cost and sponsor the website and the podcast, we'd love to help you out. Please visit TheOddsBreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $24.99 a month, you can get my plays and premium plays before the line moves. And if nothing else, please visit TheOddsBreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. My friends, we have a great show for you today because David Bearman is coming on to discuss the NFL draft. We're going to go over some plays, we're going to go over some leans, we're going to go over some information, and we're going to go over some thoughts on who some of these teams are going to pick. We're going to talk a little bit about his Dolphins, a little bit about the Chicago Bears, and a few other teams as well. So very excited for David to come on. And before that happens, I wanted to make sure that you guys know that we are going to do the Kentucky Derby podcast tomorrow. We're going to try to get Marco and Chris back to go over the field, go over the best horses, the worst horses, long shots, sleepers, throwouts, pretty much everything that pertains to the Kentucky Derby. And if I have time afterwards, we're going to do a little bit of UFC as well. So that's going to be for tomorrow's show. But this show is all about the NFL draft. And hopefully we can give you some plays that's going to be a good investment for your bankroll. Okay, full disclosure here. I'm on about an hour of sleep. My two daughters apparently ate a ton of berries from the store, blueberries, strawberries, maybe some raspberries. And my oldest daughter, almost 5 years old, was complaining that her stomach hurt. About 30 minutes later, throws up all over her bed. Then about 20 minutes after that, cleaning it all up, we put her in our bed. My 2-year-old throws up all over her bed. Berries everywhere, right? Everywhere. So we put her in our bed, and we put some buckets there. I think you know what happens next. Do you think we were fast enough with those buckets?
Hell no, to the no, 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 hell to the no.
Not even close. So we clean up the whole bed, strip the sheets, comforters, everything. I pull out 2 blow-up mattresses from the garage, and mind you, it's about 11 p.m. by this time. Put them down, grab fresh blankets, the buckets, pillows. We're all laying down, and they do it again. And we're still too slow. Go through all that again, and this is about the 3rd bath now we're giving them. We get into the living room, and it's probably about midnight. And I have them watch a show, Mickey Mouse, right? They're fine. They drank some water. I was a little worried about dehydration. Drank some water. Finally, no throwing up. About half an hour sitting there, put them back to bed. What happens?
Oh no, oh no, oh no, 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 oh no.
This is about the 5th time now or something. But at least we had like 4 buckets by us and caught most of it. And it was mostly water by this time. Probably a good thing because it cleared out pretty much everything. At about 2 a.m., I finally fall asleep. One of them wakes up at 3:30, had to get some water, whatever, or something. Can't remember. And then I'm back down and wake up at about 5. So I probably have 1 or 2 solid hours of sleep, and I'm not even sure how solid they were. So fair warning to you guys, I might not be exactly 100% for this podcast. Might be a little delirious. let's get right into this draft then. So without further ado, Mr. David Bearman from ESPN. Now I'm very excited to welcome back to the Odds Breakers, the deputy editor of sports betting at ESPN, Mr. David Bearman from ESPN.com. You can follow him on Twitter at DBearmanESPN. David, thanks for coming back to the show, man. I think the fact that you're a Dolphins fan makes this even more exciting for me and the audience, because you guys have like 3 picks in the first 36, man. How do you contain yourself right now?
It does make, and thanks for having me on, it does make the draft more interesting, and you pay attention a lot more when your team is the one that's taking center stage. I mean, we had 3 first-round picks last year, 2 first-round picks this year, and then an early second-round pick. So lots of, you're looking at it as a Dolphins fan. I'm looking at the draft as literally a build a team from the ground up thing, which you've seen teams like New England Patriots do for 2 decades. And the Dolphins are in that position. They were rock bottom at the, middle of the 2019 tank for Tua type situation where they started out 0-7 and then rallied to finish 5-11 and was still able to get Tua. And now they have the opportunity to surround him with some weapons and get deeper on the lines. Last year, they drafted 3 offensive linemen during the draft, all rookies last year that are going to be key components this year on the line. So from a team that's looking to build from the ground up, it's an exciting time. And the draft is the draft. It's a one-of-a-kind thing that everybody loves.
Absolutely, man. And I'm excited for it, but we've seen a ton of mock drafts, probably too many by now, David. It's like, let's just get this thing rolling. It's the way I feel. I mean, everyone's calling it to be chaotic. Analysts are predicting it. I think that it's going to be chaotic. What's your take on how chaotic it's going to be in general?
I never think the draft is actually going to be as chaotic as people think it's going to be. I'm not saying it's not. It probably will be. But the attention that it gets ahead of time and all the potential trade rumors and team rumors and player rumors leads you down a path of, oh my God, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen. At the end of the day, some of it happens, some of it doesn't happen. You'll have years where there's 5 trades in the first round, and you'll have years where there's no trades in the first round. I do think we already had a couple of shots across the bow when the Dolphins have already made 2 trades, trading down from 3 to 12 with the Niners and then trading back up to 6 with the Eagles. So there's 2 trades have already been made. I don't think we're done yet. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see that the Falcons make a trade like a lot of people are expecting, or the Lions may trade. But at the end of the day, I kind of fall in the middle where I don't think it's as hectic as all of the people who are obsessed about the draft think it's going to be. But I think it won't be as boring as 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 32. You're going to see movement. You're going to see teams making – there's a lot more movement now, especially at the quarterback position, than we've ever seen before. But I'm not expecting a wholesale million different trades. I think there will be movement. I'd be surprised if there were no trades in the top 10. We've already had 2 technically. But I don't think it's going to be crazy. And I still think you're going to see the players that you would expect to go up there get done. I don't see any surprises in the top 3, and I think the odds show that. But I think the draft really gets interesting at 4, and I've been saying this all week. The Atlanta Falcons, to me, hold the keys to the rest of the draft, because what they do at 4, whether it's a quarterback, which makes one less quarterback out there, and other teams have to come up to get one if they want one, offensive lineman like dropping to 5, and Kyle there, or go ahead and take or a Pitts, and there's a quarterback still there that opens the opportunity for teams to trade down. So I believe 3 picks are set, at least the positions are, and 4 is where it's going to get interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree. 4 is extremely interesting, and it does hold the keys. And I kind of agree with you, too. Here's the thing. My take on it is that it's chaotic because people don't know. They didn't get a full scouting report. The COVID thing threw a lot of people off. There's a lot of teams that have positions that sat out last year, and they're competing with some of the guys coming in this year, and I think that's interesting from their own teams, so there's multiple positions from for example, LSU wide receivers. There's quite a few of them because Jamar Chase sat out. Just so many things. But I do agree that teams are going to want to trade down because of it more. There's not a lot of high-end talent minus Kyle Pitts and a couple positions at quarterback and wide receiver, I think that a lot of them kind of grade out pretty evenly. So if you're someone picking number 10, 11, 12, you're probably thinking to yourself, man, why don't I just trade down? There's no one sticks out. I'd rather get more picks. But then other teams are going to be like, well, I'm not going to trade down because I want to trade down too. You know, I think after the roll on quarterbacks happens, more teams are going to want to trade down than trade up. So they're going to
And you have to keep in mind, not everybody can trade down. There's only so many teams that can do that. And we've already seen one team move up to 3. I think, you're not going to see much movement at the 1 and 2 spot. And I think, like we talked about, the 4 spot, if teams want to get that quarterback, they'll trade up to number 4 because I don't really think the Falcons are taking a quarterback. I know there's rumors out there that they are. But when you have Matt Ryan tied up and you can't do anything about it for the next 2 years, it wouldn't really make sense for them to draft his replacement and have him sit for 2 years. At number 4, it makes sense like in the 3rd or 4th round. But we'll see. They really hold the keys there. And I think if teams are going to start trading down, it would start with the Falcons at 4.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say teams won't be able to trade down. So it's going to force some hands. It's going to force some picks here. But let's get into quarterbacks here just real quick. Who's your top 5 quarterbacks?
Well, you got to start with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I think there's no real argument there. The guy's been projected number 1 for the last 2 years now, and rightfully so. And that's where, Urban Meyer goes out to Jacksonville to build from the ground up, and you start with a franchise quarterback. So it's hard to move off of Trevor there, which is why you're not seeing much action at the number 1 spot when it comes to the betting lines. Is going to be Trevor, and then you move on to the rest of the draft. At 2, it's really up to everybody else's opinion. I know the Jets are really high on Wilson. I personally think that Justin Fields is the second best quarterback in the draft. I've watched Fields for a couple of years now, and the way he can move inside and out of the pocket, it's got a great arm. I really like Justin Fields. He's not going to go number 2. That'll be Wilson, and that's where I would have Wilson slotted 3rd. And I really think the 4th quarterback to me is interchangeable, whether it's Mac Jones or Trey Lance. It depends on what you're looking for, and that's why I think he may go number 3 with Mac Jones to San Francisco if that is the direction Shanahan wants to go. But I think Jones and Lance are interchangeable, and the biggest difference to me, I think Lance is the better quarterback, but I think Jones obviously has had the tougher competition and has proven more, being the Heisman Trophy candidate for the number 1 team in the country, playing the SEC schedule, as opposed to Trey Lance, in all due respect, only played 1 game this year in FCS style. I do think both are going to be good quarterbacks. 5 quarterbacks in the first round is almost a given. Likely have someone trade up and maybe get a 6th one, but those are the top 5 to me, and I would have Trevor first, Fields second, Wilson, and then Jones and Lance are interchangeable any way you look at it.
All right. Well, I'm kind of on the same page with you because I have Fields second as well. What I've seen from Fields gives me more confidence than a guy like Wilson, who had one of the easiest schedules in football, and even a guy like Lance. As a matter of fact, Lance is not in my top 5. I think it's just real sexy for these draft analysts to put a guy there from the FCS. They did it with Carson Wentz, and he turned out well for a while, but now it's kind of questionable. But these are the same guys that had Mitch Trubisky at number 1. So I mean, here's the thing: Lance played in the FCS, and North Dakota State is the Alabama of the FCS, and that's not even the same level as the FBS. So he had the best athletes at that level around him beating up people. That's not a good formula for guaranteed success in the NFL. So I have Lawrence, Fields, Wilson. I have Jones number 4, and I have Kyle Trask number 5 there. So you and your Gators can be a little happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue the Kyle Trask thing. Obviously, I'm a big fan of his. I don't think he goes in the first round, but level of competition, obviously, Trask has a lot better than Lance. And you're right. Maybe Trey Lance could be a product of a system just like, the Alabama quarterback can dominate the SEC. Well, Trey Lance and North Dakota State dominated the FCS. Their quarterback that filled in for Lance went ahead and did awesome last week in the first round of the FCS playoffs. We'll see. I do think you're going to get those 5 for sure. And it's funny because you look at it, 1 or 2 of them are going to end up as a bust. At least that's what history tells us.
At least. Absolutely. We've seen that many times. And speaking of busts, let's get into San Francisco. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo, in their minds, were a bust because why else would they give up 3 first-rounders? Well, I guess 2 first-rounders because they're swapping a first-rounder to move up to this spot. It made the price of moving up pretty high. And maybe I think they're probably competing with Carolina or somebody there. But lots of their reports don't make a lot of sense. And Mac Jones is a favorite here. Why are we now hearing their scouts like Trey Lance? They're putting out information for a reason. That's my opinion. So, Pro Football Focus has Fields as the second best quarterback, and they have Fields going to the San Francisco 49ers on their mock draft. That's the way I have it, but everyone's saying Mac Jones. I don't know. Do you think they're putting up smoke screens here?
If you were to go fast forward about 10 years and you're thinking about looking back and doing a 30 for 30 on anything draft related, I think the San Francisco 49ers of 2019 through 2021 at the quarterback position is going to be a fascinating 30 for 30 because you start off with a guy that everybody thought was the golden child to replace Brady and Jimmy Garoppolo. Trade for him. He leads the team to the Super Bowl after a couple of injuries, and then he's person non grata the next year, and they're looking to replace him. So it's a fascinating look at what San Francisco does and doesn't think of their NFC winning quarterback. And then fast forward to the draft right now, and I think the 49ers are showing all of us the nonsense of the NFL draft. We all love it. We all eat it. It's everybody's, like, everyone loves to read and click and the mock drafts and the, listening to you and I talk. San Francisco 49ers are playing right into the media's obsession and Twitter's obsession with the draft. Don't believe anything you hear from any of these teams, and the 49ers are showing that with sending one smokescreen after another. I've never been a general manager of an NFL team, but I'm not trading 2 first-round picks to move up to the number 3 spot if I don't know who I want to take. And it may be one of a couple of guys, but all this crap they're sending out there, they know who they want. Whether they're sending out good information, fake information, or no information, ignore it. They know who they're going to take. The media thinks it's Mac Jones based on everything they've read. I think it can be any of them, but all I know is one thing. They know who they're going to take, and they don't want you to know who they're going to take. It's the ultimate poker showdown when you're showing your cards, but you're not showing your cards. Like, they could have pocket aces. They could have deuce 7. You don't know, and they don't want you to know. It's fascinating, and I think, I was talking to one of our coordinating producers of the news desk yesterday at ESPN, and we were just laughing about all the information that's out there and how all of us are covering it, not just ESPN, but everywhere, on every channel, the obsession with the news and how it's moving the betting lines, and there's no better classic case than what the San Francisco 49ers are literally doing to us as we speak.
And the speculation was Fields because there is connections there. And there are connections there with some ex-quarterbacks that played for the Shanahans, and as well as some stuff in California. There's certain connections that you can't ignore, and that's why he became a favorite, but then it shifted again. And I agree with you. They have to know that they're going to get someone, and they have to like the 2 next people. They have to like Zach Wilson to move up that much, and they have to like. So I think it's Fields personally. So Wilson's gone, right? He's gone, right. But I think that it's fair to put a bet on Lance at plus 240 and Fields at plus 400. I got plus 450. Because I think the Mac Jones is speculation. Here's the thing. Maybe they're really high on Fields, and so they're putting out all this disinformation, and they just don't – if they're so high on Fields, maybe the Jets second-guess themselves and not get Wilson. I don't know. That's the conspiracy anyway, and I'm not saying I'm buying into it, but it's just weird what San Fran's doing. So I see a little value in there, and I played that. David. So first play of the day already. I'm going to do that. And if Mac Jones gets drafted, God bless him. We'll see how the Alabama quarterbacks turn out. And for your sake, I hope it's Tua. That turns out better. So we'll see what happens. Let's go to the Cincinnati Bengals. What do you think they're going to pick at spot 5?
Honestly, it all depends on what happens at pick 4. And that's the fascinating part is it all depends. If the Falcons or whoever takes the Falcons spot take a quarterback, then you're open to taking Kyle Pitts as the best player in the draft at number 5, and I think that's a done deal, and that's where they go. If the Falcons keep their pick and don't go quarterback and go ahead and take Pitts or Chase, I then think Penei Sewell becomes one of those situations where the Bengals need protection for Joe Burrow, but I also know that they want to give Joe Burrow the wide receiver that he played with in Chase. So ultimately, I think it's going to be Jamar Chase at number 5 for the Bengals. But if a quarterback goes 4 in the Falcons spot, at that point, I think Cincinnati takes Kyle Pitts. So to me, it's either Pitts or it's Chase, depending on what the Falcons do or don't do at 4.
Yeah, I think it would be absolutely stupid if they went with Chase, in my opinion, especially with what happened to Joe Burrow here. What some of these GMs don't understand, if you look over the years, high drafted wide receivers do not move the needle. They don't, and they cost a lot of money year 3 and year 4 if they turn out. Chase, fantastic. A lot of that maybe was Joe Burrow. But what's more important, having Joe Burrow on the field to make plays because my defense isn't getting run all over the whole game and I'm getting like 20 to 23 minutes of possession time? Or draft a receiver and what are you going to do with him if you're not going to do that? So you got to protect the guy that tore his ACL. That's extremely important. In correlating college to the NFL would be an absolute stupid mistake, in my opinion.
And I do think the Bengals and Dolphins are in similar but different scenarios. What I would say the Bengals should do for their rookie quarterback, second-year quarterback, compared to what I think the Dolphins should do for their second-year quarterback, they're very close situations, especially where they're picking at 5 and 6. But I think there are different situations where if I'm the Bengals, Burrow is coming off of that bad injury, and they don't have much of an offensive line. So I think going Sewell or Slater is the right way to go. Whereas in Miami, they took 3 offensive linemen last year's draft, and the problem with Tua wasn't keeping him upright. It was who he's going to pass to. They need the weapons, which is why at Miami's spot, and I know we'll get to that in a few minutes, I would go with the playmaker at wide receiver or tight end, even though I know you don't like taking receivers that high. Miami's problem right now is an offensive line, to the point where they actually traded one of them away yesterday. But in Cincinnati's case, I do agree. I think keeping Burrow upright, they do have receivers on that team. It's not like the Bengals have no weapons. I think the Bengals need that offensive lineman, but that's also me hoping they take Sewell because I don't want the Dolphins to.
Yeah, the Dolphins might be able to take a lineman later. It's pretty deep, but I actually do agree with you. Some teams, and there's in some scenarios, really just need the playmaker. And I know they got Fuller there, but moving back to the Bengals, the fact that they picked T. Higgins, the first pick of the second round, I mean, you can almost call that a first-round pick if it's pick, 33, 34. Yep. Absolutely makes no sense. And yes, they lost A.J. Green, but, drafting a wide receiver might not do them any good. I mean, these are a different level of cornerbacks defending these guys. And Chase might be good. He might not be good. There could be some things that pop up. There could be injuries that ruin his career. Crazy to take him. But moving on to the Dolphins here, I'm going to ask you, who should they pick at spot 6? Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, or Devonta Smith? And I know, after the championship game, you were a little excited about Devonta Smith, and who wasn't, right? I mean, who wasn't after that, what they did? In my opinion here, I think it should be Pitts just because he's generational and they did get Fuller, but I wouldn't have a problem if they got Devonta Smith even over Jamar Chase just because Tua threw to him a ton of times. As a matter of fact, in 2019, I'm pretty sure Devonta Smith was his leading receiver for Tua.
No. And he also caught the pass in overtime versus Georgia to win the national title a few years ago. So in your scenario, you're saying all of those are on the board. Who do I take? All 4 are on the board?
Yep.
That's a dream scenario, one that I hope absolutely happens tomorrow night.
Well, you're getting 2 for sure. You're getting 2 for sure. Maybe Chase goes to the Bengals. Maybe Pitts goes to Atlanta. But you're at least getting Waddle or Smith.
Yeah, and I do find it hard to believe all 4 will be available because, as I said a minute ago with the Bengals, if Pitts is there, I think they take Pitts, even though I would still take the offensive lineman for the Bengals spot. And if Pitts is gone, then they probably will go with Chase or Sewell. But if the Dolphins have them available, I have them ranked as follows. I would take Kyle Pitts first. I know I was extremely high on Devonta Smith after the national title game, and I still am. I do love the kid, and I think he's going to be an outstanding wide receiver. I also watched every single snap of Kyle Pitts' career, and Everything that you are currently hearing over the last couple of months is something that I and all the other Gator alums have seen for the last 2 years. The guy is just a freak of nature. He is unbelievable, has some of the best hands I've ever seen. Kyle Trask, with all due respect, Heisman Trophy candidate, throws the ball up in the air, and Kyle Pitts goes and gets it. He's going to make some NFL team's quarterback extremely happy. I would take Kyle Pitts if I had a choice of all of them. And after that, I think if you look at the other three receivers, I think Jamar Chase is probably the best talent of them all. I do have question marks because, he was not there last year and a whole year out of football. And the two Alabama receivers, honestly, it's a coin flip. You have two really incredible athletes, route runners, fast guys. Waddle, obviously, bigger than Smith. Smith, allegedly the best route runner in the game. I don't think you can go wrong either one. The only difference I would say is you could probably get Waddle or Smith a little bit later in the top 10. So if it came down to all four are available, the Dolphins might be apt to trade down a little bit and have someone come up to 6. But I think Kyle Pitts is a no-brainer if he's still there at number 6.
Yeah, if Carolina wants a quarterback, they could trade down. I think trading down is the best thing just because you have all those options there. If Pitts is there, you grab him. But if not, and even if Chase is there, it sounds like you calm down a little bit on Smith, which is what a lot of draft people have been saying. I still think Smith, in my opinion, is the best in the draft of the wide receivers. And I'm going to hold strong there because I've never seen someone downshift so fast and pull away from people like he did. And I never seen a guy lead Alabama in 2019 and didn't even go to the draft. I mean, it was amazing to me. So I don't care how small he is. Marvin Harrison was the same size when he came out. I'm going to stick to my guns on this one.
I'm not necessarily cooling off on Smith as I am excited about some of the other guys that are there. I still would have absolutely no problem if the Dolphins took Devontae Smith at number 6. I'd be more than happy to get Tua and Smith back together again. I know NFL Nation Dolphins writer Cameron Wolf last night on ESPN2 gave the Dolphins Devontae Smith for that very reason. I would absolutely be okay with that.
All right, let's get into some plays then since we are a little limited on time. Let's go on wide receivers. Over under is 4.5. The under is plus money, plus 225. And I'll start first here. I'm going to play the under 4.5, and I'm probably going to lose it because I played the under 6.5 last year and lost it too because all these GMs are picking receivers. But guess what? Out of all the people, and I think we discussed this before, David, on a previous podcast, not one of those teams that drafted a first-round receiver, not one of those 7 teams made the playoffs last year. So I took some comfort in that, even though I lost the bet last year.
You've been pounding that stat out there since you and I were on this very call a year ago discussing the draft, and your point is very, very valid. I'm just not sure it's actually hanging up in any of the coaches or GM's offices before they make the draft, because obviously they're not paying attention to that note while going ahead and drafting all of those wide receivers. And I think you're going to lose this one again, and I actually really like the over 4.5. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I'm saying that I think it's going to happen. I really, really like the over. We've already talked about Chase, Smith, and Waddle are sure things. They're absolutely going to go, if not the first round, but the top 3. And then to hit that over, you really only need 2 more from Elijah Moore, Rashard Bateman, Tony, and Terrence Marshall. And of those 4 guys, they're all extremely good playmakers on extremely good offenses. And I do see teams moving around to get those guys. I mean, there's a possibility, and I've seen some mock drafts where all of those guys go, and you have all 7 go. I think 5 is a very, very fair thing to go for. I know the money is juiced on the over 5, but I think, Kadarius Toney may not go until early second round, but I think Elijah Moore and Rashad Bateman absolutely go in the first round, and there's your 5. And to me, I don't think this one even comes down to the wire. I think it's done by the mid-20s.
All right, well, let's look at that one. Total disagreement from me, and I think maybe they learned a lesson. I only have 3 receivers that grade out in the first round because I don't see a big difference between like a Bateman and a Dynasty Brown, right? I don't see a big difference between that. I don't see a big difference between Elijah Moore and Rondale Moore, except Rondale Moore is 2 inches shorter. Well, sometimes that's good, in my opinion, because he's seen a little bit less. Yeah, I don't know. I think that people are going to look at wide receivers and see that there's that upper threshold. And if they're going to reach for a wide receiver, God bless them. But 4.5, I'm getting plus 225. The over 4.5 is minus 300. So I don't like the price at all on it right now. But I did go into this, David, saying this is probably my most chance for a loser. So at least I don't trust the GMs.
That's the fascinating part about draft betting. Why it's so different than any other market you and I bet is, like, legitimately when we're betting games and looking at the juice, which the juice isn't as important when you're doing games because usually the number is the thing. We may be a little bit scared off by the juice because we don't like it, but when it comes to the draft, the number isn't changing. It's the juice that always changes, and it's fascinating where you can get Mac Jones as the 3 pick one day at minus 125, and the next day he's minus 400. It's just the juice is so different when it comes to draft betting because the number just isn't going to change.
100%. Jamar Chase over under 6.
I would go under that one only because I think he's going to go to a top 5 team. I just think the Bengals are going to be the Bengals, and they're either going to take him or someone's going to trade up and get him at 4 or 5. It's a tough one because, it all depends on what the Atlanta Falcons do.
Yep.
I think at the end of the day, the Bengals are probably going to take him.
Yeah, it's probably not. It doesn't sound like you're betting this one, right? Doesn't sound like you're betting.
I'm not betting that one because the Dolphins could also take him at 6, and then you're getting a push, so it's almost irrelevant. I've seen a lot of places where it's 5.5. 5.5 is an absolute no bet for me because you really don't know what the Falcons are going to do. So my prediction is that Atlanta does trade down. Atlanta needs a ton of stuff, and there's rumors they're going to get rid of Julio Jones, and maybe the Dolphins are setting themselves up for that because they save $15 million to the cap if they trade Julio on June 2nd after June 1st. So I think that's the rumor. So maybe Atlanta knows that, and maybe Atlanta trades down because they are going to draft a receiver, like they can go to the 8 or 9, 10 spot. Possibly, I don't know who would trade up for him. Maybe Detroit, if they're throwing up red flags on us and they're really going for a quarterback. Maybe Carolina, not sold on Darnold, wants to push it a little bit. There's some chances there, but I think Atlanta does get bought off this because Atlanta's got that same problem. Can't stay on the field because their defense is just giving up way too much time of possession, bad against the run. And what good is Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, if they can't even play, So I think they might have figured that out. They have a new coach there too, but Kyle Pitts is so sexy. I don't know. If they draft Pitts, I still think they're going to trade Julio there. But my prediction is that happens. But Jamar Chase, I think I'm going to lean to the over on the 6. Rashad Bateman over under 25.5 or 28.5. Sorry, juice to the over minus 150. I think he goes in the first round, and therefore, unless he goes the last 3 picks in the first round, I think I have him as going in the top 28 picks. These teams like their wide receivers. I know it's juice to the over. I'd lay it. I absolutely would. I think someone's gonna pick him the latter half of the first round. Right. I know you don't like that, so I know you're going to go on the other side of it.
Man, look at you predicting what I'm doing now. We should put some odds on it. Well, I got a much better number, though. I got over 26.5. It's getting dicey at 28.5, and it's juiced at minus 150. I think the Packers have a good shot at picking them at 29. If the Packers don't go with linebacker, I'm going to lean to the over at 28.5, but I did give it out at 26.5. So
I would definitely take the over 26.5.
Well, I'll tell you this: people could middle that sucker too. Maybe it goes up even higher. I don't know, because it is juiced to the over at minus 150. So that's a middle potential I set myself up for with our premium clients. So we'll see what happens. Travis Etienne under 32.5, juiced to the under minus 150. And sorry for the humble brag here, but I did get under 35.5. early, and I think the Jets sweep him up at 34.
Yeah, I think he's a day 2 guy. I still think that the other running back goes in the first round. Harris will go to somebody, maybe the Dolphins in the middle of the first round, but I think Etienne is a day 2 pick, so he's probably the guy at the end of the first round that some teams are considering trading up for to get, but at the end of the day, I think he does go probably to the Jets early second round.
All right, so I think that it's real top heavy, of course, not just top heavy as tight end. Tight end's the most top heavy draft position I've ever seen in any NFL draft. One guy and then the rest completely, right? So running back's a little top heavy too with Etienne and Najee. I think if Najee goes to the Steelers there, then a team's going to be like, look, I'm either going to get a guy I know that's going to be good, or I get nothing. And so I think someone will make a trade up. But the Jets already have some picks that they've done. Now it's time to work on the run game for Saleh there. I see the Jets getting him at 34. So I took the under, but I have no lean at 32.5. Maybe a slight lean to the under, but it's highly juiced to the under too there. So if you think he's a day 2 guy, maybe you're betting the over there, David.
Possibly, especially with the juice on there. Team could trade in to get him, but at the end of the day, I think he is a day 2 guy.
Well, you're getting plus money there, so not a bad idea if that's what you're thinking. Giants' first pick, offense, defense at -110.
Everything I've seen has them taking either a wide receiver at that pick or potentially a lineman. I guess they could go Parsons at linebacker. I'm going to lean towards the wide receiver, even though they did pick up Galladay in free agency. Just everything I've read looks like they're going to be going offense. So I lean offense there.
Man, a lot of the mock drafts I read had defense. I know they really need a linebacker like a Micah Parsons or somebody. And
I think it could be Parsons.
And I think that's why it's -110, and they need an edge rusher. The way I look at it is they got Kenny Galladay and John Ross in the offseason. Not off-season, sorry, in the free agency. I guess it is in the off-season. But just because of that, and I think maybe they don't get the best wide receiver at their position, were they 11th or something like that? They might. Yep. But I think there's a chance that they wait and get the best linebacker or edge. So I'm going to go with defense. Arizona's first pick, offense or defense, and defense is juiced at -150.
And juice for that reason. I think they're going to go and get Farley at cornerback or one of the other corners that fall. I see them going defense in this pick here. They have offensive weapons with Murray and Hopkins, and they just signed a running back. I do think they go to fix up the defense a little bit there. That's why it's juiced the way it is. Yeah,
and unfortunately Farley's really hurt. Has those 2 back surgeries, and I think that moves him to a day 2 guy, but I also still think it's defense. There's a couple guys, and there's a rumor that they like Zaven Collins there too. Mm-hmm. So I'm taking defense. We have some agreement, David, so there you go. And same thing, Kyler Murray needs to get on the field. They need a good defense to shut him off, and I know they got Simmons the year before, but I'm still saying defense. Plus, they lost Patrick Peterson to free agency, so there you go. Baltimore's first pick, offense or defense? Offense +100.
I mean, if they're smart, they go offense. So what was the problem with Baltimore at the end of last year and in the playoffs like it was the year before? Once you get behind, you can't move the ball. They're run first, run first, run first. If Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore offense wants to be taken seriously in the playoffs, they got to add weapons. I think this is actually a good spot for Bateman to go here. Or one of the other receivers at the back half of the round. They have a good running back and a good quarterback, but they just can't move the ball when they're down, and they need a weapon out there. So I think they actually go offense.
Before they traded Orlando Brown, I had him going edge rusher at spot 27. Now that they traded him, this is wide open for offense. I agree with you. I think that they need a tackle, and they probably might sign I forgot his name from the Steelers, and they have to wait a little bit on that. But either way, they need more depth there. And I thought it was a good trade for them, too, because Brown's awesome, but Lamar Jackson, he doesn't check down much. He takes off. You don't need a ton of protection for him the way they play their game. You need run blocking. So I think, just like you said, could be a receiver, and it could be an offensive lineman to replace that huge trade that they just made. So I know they got Gregory Rousseau there, and Calais Campbell's been arguing for him, but they might get him at 31 anyway. So at the +100, love it. I'll take the coin flip on that one for sure. All right, well, we're out of time then, David, but do you have any other plays that you were looking at for our listeners?
I mean, I do. One of the top plays I was going to give was the over 4.5 wide receivers. It is juiced pretty high at 400, but I think that one goes, and I think the juice is I wouldn't even think twice about that one, although you and me are on opposite sides there.
That's okay, David. We haven't had the last 3-4 podcasts. We've agreed on almost everything, so we needed this podcast.
I also think depending on what number you get, I think there's at least 18 offensive players taken in the first round, heavy on offense. I've seen numbers 17.5, 18.5. If you can get it 17.5 and take the over 18, get it at 18, I think I would lay it there. If it's 18.5 to go to 19, I think it would depend on what the juice is. I got it at 17.5, so I think 18 of 32 picks being offense is probably a safe bet, considering you're going to get probably 9 of the first 10 on offense anyway, and you just got to ride out the rest of the draft. But if you can get it at 17.5, I would play the over there.
Well, I'll tell you this: if all those receivers are going, this thing's going way over in offense.
Right.
So, I mean, that's one way to look at it. I counted 18 offense with 3. I have 4 receivers in my mock draft that I did. So, and I think maybe Tennessee does grab Elijah Moore because of A.J. Brown's might be pounding the table for him. Who knows? But I don't buy into that pound the table too much. But maybe they'll look at it as like, hey, we got lucky with Ole Miss already. And Ole Miss was a really great offense last year, so they could go Elijah Brown at Tennessee. So, yeah, I say I have 18, so I don't disagree with that at all. All right, David. Well, where can our listeners get your draft information coming all the way up to Thursday when it starts at, I believe, 8 p.m. Eastern time?
Yes, so we have ESPN.com. Chalk has all the best bets. It's out there right now. Best bets for the NFL draft. Props, we have 9 different writers in there with somewhat around 50 different picks. We also have other nuggets out there from the draft. And, of course, our ESPN NFL website has all the type of things you would need in terms of mock drafts, cheat sheets, position by position, everything from Mel, Todd, NFL Nation, etc. I also tend to give out a whole bunch of nuggets in our columns at my Twitter page, which is at DBearman ESPN. So follow me there, and give out a lot of nuggets and all of our articles. If you want to read them, they're there.
All right, make sure you guys check out ESPN Chalk on ESPN and ESPN Plus. Thank you so much, David, for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and enjoyed the draft.
All right, my friends, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you have any NFL draft questions, please feel free to tweet us at the Odds Breakers. Have a great time watching the draft and go get some winners.